Hello, Daniel Knauf,
Hi,
screenwriter.
how you doing, Kate?
I'm great. Screenwriter, producer, and author,
And Man About Town.
and man about town, and a
Yeah.
Los Angeles expatriate like everybody else.
Oh yeah, yeah. I moved to the United States of America.
I heard about that. Yeah, the
Yeah.
real world is what I like to call it.
Ah,
Um,
ah.
so when did this author thing take hold? Because you've got two books now.
Well, I mean, I started. I mean, when I started in start screenwriting, I started with prose, short stories and poems, and so it's not, and then I discovered screenwriting and that worked well. It played to my strengths as a writer. And so I did that for a while. But then you get these ideas sometimes where you say, yeah, that's not going to work. Yeah, I mean, I'll know, okay, well, this will work for TV. This is good for long form. This is a short film. This is a feature film. And then there's a couple of just ideas that I go, no, I think this is something I need to do as a novel, and
Yeah.
generally during my, I'll set that aside. But this was one where it occurred to me, and I said, no, this has to be a book. It can't be. I could have gone and pitched this as a story at half a dozen places and probably gotten a deal and probably written something, and maybe it would be, maybe it would be on now.
Tell me what this is.
Well, this is Gingerland, and
Gingerland.
I was inspired by, well, first of all, I was inspired by the challenge of it, and I also was, challenged by my friend Tracy Torme's father, Mel Torme, wrote the Christmas song, chestnuts
Chestnuts
roasting.
roasting on an open fire. Yeah.
Yeah, and funny thing that he wrote that song with his partner up at Lake Arrowhead during a drought, and it was horrifically hot. So these two guys are sitting there just.
Now, Lake Arrowhead, for those who don't know, is normally a ski resort in the
Yeah,
mountains east of Los Angeles, except when there's a drought and it's really hot, and then there's no skiing there.
and
It's
then
just,
it's just
just
miserable.
a
Yeah,
diminishing lake.
yeah. You just watch the lake's levels go down,
The lake levels go down.
and he was in, and they wrote this, I guess, the penultimate Christmas song, and so every year that song would play, and I thought, that's, to have something that's a Christmas thing that's perennial. um I mean, it appealed to me. I mean, maybe it appealed to my ego a little bit. Maybe it was just, I don't know, when you do this thing, what you want to do is, my objective is to move people. And in order to do that, I have to land on their ear balls,
Mm-hmm.
eyeballs. And and so it's that, and whether it's a big move or a little move is to invoke emotion. And in a way to pay forward what I got from all the writers that I read that inspired and moved me, and there's okay, well, I'll do an episode of television, do an episode of Blacklist. I'm going to have 5 million people who are going to be watching that. It's mass media. um and that's a big opportunity. That's a big bump, as far as big megaphone, so to speak. And uh then there's time. And so, the Blacklist, I don't know if they're going to be watching the Blacklist 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But when you're doing something that's a Christmas story, especially if there's a timeless aspect to it, they could be listening to it. This could be affecting people 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now.
Yeah.
They could be discovering it or just cherishing it and looking forward to, oh, great, we get, like, every year my mom loved the Grinch, and it would be like we'd all get around the TV, and when they aired the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, it's like, this is something we look forward to every year. And
And of all the things that Dickens wrote,
oh yeah,
all of the doorstop books that Dickens wrote,
yes,
his novella Christmas Carol
uh-huh.
is the most, like, well, 20 years ago you did Carnivale for HBO, which is this fantastical Depression era drama. Then you've done
Yeah,
a bunch of other things. You did The Blacklist, which is crime drama for NBC.
procedural. I've done
procedural
almost
drama.
every genre there is. Sword
Yeah,
and
and now
Sandal.
you've done a hard
Yeah.
turn into charming, sweet, sugar sprinkled, slightly edgy Christmas story.
Well, heartfelt, I think too.
Yeah.
It's like two books in one. There's parts 1 through 5, and part 2 is an origin story, and it's the story of uh, little Emily, and this ailing little girl who lives in a hotel with her family, who own this big Adirondack resort hotel back in the early part of the 19th century. And she makes a Christmas wish, and the Christmas wish ends up creating Ginger World. But the this I folk I focused on that story really lately because I've released it in um as a standalone Kindle in the last couple days. So you can now go to Kindle and
Yeah.
type in Saranac Mountain House Christmas Memories, and this book will come up. You can read it, and it's basically looks like a private family album of the Belmont family who own the hotel. And there's faded sepia type photographs of all the people that were involved in the story. And that part of the story, I mean, although I really love the book, that part of the story really is close to me. Um, and there, for a bunch of reasons, some of which are private, which I probably won't discuss tonight. But um, it struck me as this is a really classic, just Christmas story. This is something that could be read in one sitting aloud to children, and it's kind of wonderful and really lyrical and beautiful. And I mean, saying that about my own work, I feel, well, I'm totally Hollywood. I'm just patting myself on the back and giving myself a good review, but I was very proud of it. And I'm whether the world is saying, oh well, I wish you'd stick to stuff like Carnivale and Blacklist and Spartacus. I feel like this is the most substantial thing I mean, Gingerland period is probably the most substantial thing I've written. I had the idea. I knew I wanted to do a Christmas story.
Well, what's your
But
elevator pitch for Gingerland? For those who aren't familiar
well,
with
the
it.
elevator pitch is there's 3 gingerbread cookie siblings, and they live in a place called Gingerland, and it's this wonderful place where it's Christmas all the time. And they fall through a hole in a butterbrickle floor, and they dig their way through a bunch of packing material, and they come out of a door at the base of some sort of wooden structure, and they find themselves in the real world. And the real world looks just like the gingerbread mountain house that they live in, but it's giant. Everything's huge and inedible because they can't even comprehend the idea of there being
Because
anything.
obviously a gingerbread house is made of food.
Yes, exactly. And so
Houses are not generally made of food.
no, you can't eat. Yeah, you can't eat planks and
Yeah,
there's and
no.
stairwells, and so they
Only if
they
you're a termite.
well, yeah, it's good eating for termites, but for the rest of us, not so much.
Yeah.
But they find themselves in this world. They climb up on a little chair, and to their sort of horror and dismay, they discover that the entire world that they've known their entire lives, this is their world, is basically just a, a Christmas display in the lobby of this Adirondack hotel. And so they very quickly find themselves, being threatened by a cat and by Millie the killer maid, and she's,
It's a dangerous world for cookies.
it's a very dangerous world for cookies, and they end up in the walls. This is not really the elevator pitch. I'm telling the whole story. They end up in the Saranac house. We'll turn it into an elevator pitch, and the rest of the story is basically their quest to get home. And there's baddies in it. So I think
But not too bad.
they're pretty bad. I think they're the kind when you're writing when you're writing.
Carnival blacklist level bad.
Oh well, no, they're not. They're not.
That
No,
bad. Yeah.
that you have this very
Nobody gets murdered.
no, nobody gets murdered, but the entire world almost gets destroyed. Gingerland is going to go into an
Well,
incinerator. That's
that is
heavy
true.
duty.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true. Yeah.
but it's the general manager of the hotel who's sort of this sort of really this corporate girl boss type who's just, everything needs. I think of the character of the mom in Beetlejuice. Everything has to be fashionable, everything has to be just so, and she's got all her friends in
Yeah.
Manhattan, and she's kind of embarrassed by this. She's stuck in this mausoleum of a hotel, for her first gig as a manager with, the company she works with, and but here's this schmaltzy crap that this this ginger world thing, how cheesy, and
Yeah.
so she wants to replace it. She wants to make the hotel fashionable and attract a higher. And it's just, this hotel was once like, very, very, I mean, they had presidents and presidents and princes and so forth, but it's been
Hmm.
run down over the years, and she wants to turn it into a resort spa, and it's for all her Manhattanite buddies, and she's pretty despicable as a person, and uh
But she
avaricious.
doesn't kill any.
No, she does not kill anyone. And then she's got her
Right.
friend Monty, who's a guy who thinks that he is, you know, um, Leonardo da Vinci, but what he really is he's a third-rate, guy who does window displays in stores. And so I think it's just both of
It's
them
all
think,
the pretensions of our
yeah,
modern
and
world.
that's the thing that really,
Yeah.
that really, I can't, that
It's a
bothers
shock
me.
that one of them is not an influencer.
Yeah, well, yes, that would they would aspire to be influencers. The yeah,
But
so
like,
this story, what
you
was, I'm
released
sorry.
Gingerland
Yeah.
as a Substack, and
Mhm.
now you've released the pictorial and prose backstory of the location as a Kindle.
Yes.
So, what is next for Gingerland as a whole? Are we going to look at a hardcover book, a Kindle book of the whole thing, or is there going to be an animated movie, or what's
Well,
the next
I've,
step?
what's, I've had some nibbles on it, from a couple of, studios, and, w- I know how the sausage is made, and,
Yeah.
and very early in my career, when I did Carnivale, they make you sign these contracts that basically say we own, the rights to this in every
Ooh.
medium, um, you know, every medium, invented and uninvented. I mean,
Oh,
that's what the
but
language.
now you're an author.
Yeah, well, it's still, even if you're, if I'm an author, let's say if I went to a studio now, they would say, okay, well, we'll buy the underlying rights and we'll make this, we'll make this thing. And um what movie companies are in the movie business, and I I really don't want to, I want to be able to control this particular piece of material, and I
Yeah.
mean, sort of an iron fist. I don't want it to show up as, oh, Gingerland, no, Gingerland slot machines in Las Vegas. It's like, I really want to control exactly who gets licensed to use these characters, and to really make sure that if I'm going to have this legacy, that there's a, um that there's it's handled. It's not just, oh, whoever will give us money, we'll just give this stuff
Yeah,
to.
the only way to do that really is to pay for it yourself.
It kind of is,
Yeah.
and so, and I'm in no hurry to sell it. It's like, it's fine just the way it is. I mean, as far as how I'm going to do this, I'm kind of learning as I go along. The Substack Gingerland, you have, access to the first 11, or the first, 14. I think the first 14 chapters, that comprise part one, and that's free. You can just go on right now, you put your email address on, and you can read 14 chapters of the
And
book.
the
And
address of that is?
it's I think substack.gingerland.com.
Okay.
So, oh, but you can easily find it if you
You can Google
type
it.
it. Yeah, you can absolutely Google it. And so you go on there and you start reading. You can read into 11 chapters for free. If you sign up if you subscribe, which is, $49, 99 cents, I guess. You get an annual subscription for that. But essentially what you're getting is you're pre-ordering a book. So when I do publish the book in hardbound, I want to do sort of an heirloom edition that's limited in numbers, and you would be given that book. That book you'll get that book.
One thing I discovered there's a movie called The Man Who Invented Christmas, which is a
uh,
fictionalized account of how Dickens created A Christmas Carol.
yeah.
And what I didn't realize at the time, which turned out to be true, is that he self-published it. He had a couple of flops, nobody wanted to touch it.
Mhm.
So he paid for the illustrations, he paid for the publishing of it, he paid for
Which is what
everything.
I've done. I had to pay, I was lucky stars. I found Zelda Devon, who's a wonderful illustrator, and she knew we were speaking the same language. I mean, I was saying I want this to look like the classic chapter books that Johnny Rule did for like Raggedy Ann and Andy. So I want this kind of look to this, and talking about, okay, we got to make sure they look like cookies. I mean, keep their cookiness about them. And she was a fan of all the old illustrators that I was a fan of, Arthur Rackham and Johnny Gruel and so forth. And she very, she was just sort of a giggly, like, oh my God, you know what I'm going to do? I am not going to do this on my computer. I'm going to bust out my watercolors.
Whoa. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
going to put a link in the description of this video where
yeah.
you can go to the Substack and you can go to a story I wrote about it where there's the little videos and the Facebook and all
Mhm.
that good stuff. So there'll be
Yeah,
links
yeah.
links down below.
Yeah, Zelda Devon has a nice site for her art,
Yeah,
but she hand painted all these illustrations, and it
they're
shows.
very
Shows.
1930s.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to go for. I want the whole
Yeah,
thing to feel handmade, and that what that it wasn't some sort of digital thing. Yeah,
yeah.
especially in the 80s with the looming uh you know sort of thing of AI. I think that people are going to be much more interested in reading things that are clearly written by humans.
And
Um,
I think you have merch.
I have a Gingerland shop on Etsy. If you go to gingerlandbook.com, which is an easy one to remember, all one
Yeah,
word, small cap,
gingerlandbook.com.
gingerlandbook.com. You have links to the Substack, you have links to the Gingerland shop, you have links to pretty much all things Gingerland. One way is don't waste their time. And it's like when you're doing a show, and um, somebody says, yeah, and how often have you watched a show and you just watch it all the way through, and then you turn off the TV and you sort of toss the remote and you go, well, that was a waste of an hour. Okay. Well, it's not a waste of an hour. There were
Yeah.
3 million people watching. So we just smoked 3 million hours of human life. We just wasted 3 hours. I take my job kind of heart attack serious in that regard. Because, if you sat down and took that and, I'm not good enough at math to do it on the fly, but work that out. I mean, that's several human lifetimes,
Yeah.
probably. 3 million human lives. There are 3 million hours of human life. And so it's like we might not hit the mark every time. Sometimes you do everything you can. You beat your brains out trying to make something good, and it just doesn't come together because it's a very complex thing and there's a lot of moving parts. And usually it requires three or four or five things not coming together to be really not very good. And sometimes, but you're trying, and it's like, yeah, no, our job is to entertain the audience and engage them, not bore them, not confuse them. Just it's to engage them and entertain them. We're like hosts of a party, and I want to have a party where people have a good time, and but a lot of people aren't really taught that. It's like, no, I got the feels and I want to tell my story. And it's like, nobody cares about your story unless you climb Mount Everest or something. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
Even then.
and so that's the thing. I mean, a lot of new writers when they're writing, and I'm giving a writing dissertation. I'll stop doing this, but I'll just say a lot of people when they're writing dialogue, they go, "You can read it. You know what it is. Everybody sounds the same." And the reason they all sound the same is they go, "Well, what would I say if somebody said that to me?" And and it's like, again, nobody cares what you would say because you're not interesting. You're a watcher, not a doer. You're a writer. Writers are not terribly interesting. Okay. Um, and so
Well,
the main
there's
thing
so few action movies made about them. So few.
about writers, yeah. Yeah. So I mean, what you do is you create compelling characters and they just do all the talking for you. So I'm is the part of it is writing. I have a pretty long section on
Mhm.
showing people how to do an adaptation or a successful adaptation. Um, and then there's other parts that are just stories about what I've run into, about bad behavior or me being an idiot. That's sort of a running thing through it is me screwing up and saying or doing something stupid and what I
Everyone
should have
does.
done. Yeah, and and it's fairly self-deprecating, but everybody who's read it or commented on it, and I've got like 5-star reviews from pretty much everybody who's reviewed it, and I don't know these people. I know a couple of them, which are very, they're kind. Maybe they're just, but everybody seems to genuinely really like the book, and it imparts wisdom. I mean, there's some wisdom in it for a young writer. I've been I was just lecturing over at university here, and
Or a new writer, not necessarily young.
I think, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, an aspiring writer. I mean, I kind of think about young writers as being, you know, I mean, it's weird if you're aspiring and you're older, but I was older and I was aspiring, so there's that.
There you go.
Um, but
Is, is
yeah,
there the
stupid.
one bit of Hollywood wisdom, industry wisdom that
I can give you,
you consistently see people miss
yeah.
that you just wish you could put on a, stitch into a sampler and attach it to their forehead. So every day they would see it when they looked in the mirror and remind themselves of, I must remember this one thing.
Oh, you want to give you that?
Sure.
Okay, just because two hyenas are feeding on the same zebra carcass, it doesn't make them friends.
Love that.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
they'll I've seen people just throw each other. It's like sometimes it's just like everybody just throws everybody under the bus. Um, and I don't play that way, and maybe I'm a dummy for it. Maybe I'd be much more successful if I did, but yeah, I
well,
gotta
that's why
listen.
I'm still talking to you after all these years. I
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
keep I don't keep talking to the people that don't turn out to be decent people.
well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can pat myself on the back for being decent because most people are decent. Yeah, it's just, and there's a lot of people in Hollywood that are decent.
There
Mostly in
are.
the
There actually are.
past, and even people like I mean, Clancy Brown is an absolute gentleman. I love Clancy. And Toby Huss, a wonderful guy.
Mhm.
And I've had people who've been very generous and have helped me immensely. Have just, and but then there's people that are not so that are pretty horrible, and you learn to deal with them. It's just basically like everybody's life. It's that's the way it is. No matter what you're doing, there's horrible people and there's nice people, and you just deal with them. I'm looking
Life
at my
is not always going to deal you good people to work with.
no, and sometimes
But
you look
sometimes
back.
you absolutely need to, because if you're going to get a project done, there's so many moving parts between financing, physical production, writing, directing, getting all the actors together, getting the costumes right, whatever
Oh,
it
it's
is.
pyramid building. It's
My
it's
goodness,
it's
it's a zoo.
insane. Yeah, it's like you gotta just like reach down into your own story well, and bring this stuff up to where it's coherent inside the story you're writing. and it's informing the characters and informing their behavior and their dialogue. But if you haven't lived a if you haven't been married, if you haven't spent a night in jail, if you haven't been hitchhiking, if you haven't been desperate, if you haven't been broke, if you haven't been heartbroken and betrayed, and if you haven't had these things happen to you, you really don't have much to write about. And that's the problem. When somebody comes in out of college and they're 22 years old, what do they got to write about? What, oh, they had a bad breakup with a girlfriend, you
Movies
know?
they saw, yeah,
Or even worse, I was a victim,
TV shows. Wow.
my parents didn't listen to me or didn't love me or whatever. It's like, I'm sorry, that just you need a breadth of experience. And Charles Bukowski, for instance, I mean, he posted even, I think he published Post Office when he was in his mid 50s. He had excavated his story well to beat the band. He had deep story well. I was lucky because I was in my mid 40s when I broke through. And so I really seriously, if you want to be a mediocre writer, go to work in a room as a writer, a staff writer, or story editor when you first come out of college. But you're never going to be you just don't have the breadth of experience. You're
Yeah.
living in the bubble. You're immediately getting inside the bubble. So I would suggest, hey, you know what? Um,
Y'all need to get out more.
yeah, take your
I
money
say
and
that all the
get
time.
on
Y'all
a
need
get
to
on
get
a
out more.
freighter. Yeah, take your money and get on a freighter. Take a freighter to Tokyo and spend a year in Tokyo. And then, you and fight to live and get day jobs for a while and have relationships and maybe, have a divorce or maybe have a couple of kids. I mean, then you got something to write about. But otherwise, you just all you got is what you've seen on TV. I mean, I use what I've seen on TV, but that's only part of what I'm using. If that's the totality of what you're drawing on, you just it's pretty thin is source material.
Well, sort
Anyway,
of to sum up, there's I think two schools of thought I hear a lot that you should write from your heart. You should write what you want to write. You should tell the story you want to tell. And the other school of thought is you have to look out in the, if you plan to make money at it or a living, that you have to look out in the world and see what sort of stories are selling, what sort of things are popular. So where's the balance between satisfying your creative urge and the stories you desperately want to tell and being able to produce something that's marketable and
well,
saleable,
yeah. If you're looking at things
not
and you're
just a hobby, but you
no,
really
if
want
you're
to make
looking
some money.
if you're looking at things and you're going, what's selling? That's not the way to do it. I mean, because what's selling, by the time you finish it, then it's not selling anymore. Something else is selling. So, your best bet would be if somebody tells you a story or something triggers you, and you go, well, wow, that would make a really good movie, and you think of something yourself. That's great. As far as doing what you love, I've done many jobs. Everybody has, um, where somebody comes to you, studio or producers come to you, and they've got this idea of a piece of IP, and they say, "Please, are you interested in doing this?" And it calls me, and I go, "Oh yeah, I think I could really make that cool." As entertaining and as engaging as this conversation has been, I have to
It's
go.
late.
It's late
Well,
here,
so
and
all of
so
you
I
out
do.
there should check out Gingerland and
Gingerland is, I've poured my heart and soul into this
The
thing,
World
and
of Gingerland and Stupid Writer Trick.
the stupid writer tricks you'll learn something from, and
And
Gingerland,
maybe someday you can write something like Gingerland.
wow, like what?
Maybe someday if you read Stupid Writer Tricks, you could write something like Carnivale or Gingerland.
Yeah, perhaps. I don't know.
Perhaps.
Or at least have a snicker. This book is a perfect book for the bathroom. It's short chapters and they're usually funny.
Can I share with you where the book is
It's in your
in my
bathroom.
place? It yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
it's a perfect bathroom book. So,
It is.
guests will think you're great. Put in your guest bathroom. Let them read it.
Just impress people. You know what I do.
The
Thank you
the
so much for
But
taking the time.
Gingerland though, that's my heart and soul. And if you're
Yes.
sort of like wondering, okay, I know this guy saw Carnival. That's pretty weird. I saw the Blacklist, that's pretty weird. I wonder what this nutcase would do with a children's Christmas story. If you're, and it doesn't cost anything. It's free. You can read a big chunk of it for free. And now you can buy a big chunk of it. The best thing, the book on the Saranac Mountain House, it's 99 cents. And the only reason it's 99 cents is because that's the least you can charge for a Kindle book.
No, nice.
So I wanted to basically, this is my Christmas present to everybody. I said, look, download it and read it on your Kindle and enjoy it. Read it to your kids.
Merry Christmas to one of them.
So yeah, it's joy to the world for 99 cents.
God bless us, everyone.
Less than a buck. God bless us, everyone.
Thank you.
It's been such a pleasure, Kate. I always like these.
So much fun. We'll do it again when you write your next
The real
book.
fun stuff is when we're not recording, though. That's always the fun stuff.
We'll get back to that later.
All right.
All right.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.